I said, sure, madam. So we went there, and we went into this church, and indeed there is this big crucifix hanging. But what was important was that there was a window, and the light coming from the windows, the white and colored line, were designing some lines in the back. And my mother stood for a moment, and I took some photos, and then she told me, 102, she told me, you see, this is a symbol made by mortals, and is suffused by eternal light.
Wow.
102.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the spirit. Yeah, that's really unbelievable. Yeah, definitely, and that is what it's what makes this experience, this journey, so incredible. And I think that those two works on the back are really representative of what is the I would say like the summary of what was the experience, because we can also imagine, of course, when you experience the third stage of your life, it's more when you become extremely real. You don't go around anymore stuff, you go
you start becoming more philosophical. I mean, the interlocking of cultures was done in 2000. She was 90 in 2000? Well, 80s, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have to imagine what were the thoughts of a woman who was born in the first decade of the 20th century and then passed away in the first decade of the 21st century. And I think that on a final note, I would say that when you look at the abstract, and that is the history of human thought, right? You can really see everything in that painting. You can start exploring from top to the bottom, from left to right is basically an infinite journey. And the one on the right is that it weirdly looks too much like an Instagram page. If you look at it, it's amazing that she somehow visually was able to frame this image. That now we look at our phone, and she basically, that is a summary of human history, from hieroglyphs to ancient languages. And this tells us how precious artists are, and how precious talent is, that we have to do everything possible, on one hand, to preserve this kind of legacy, and never stop supporting artists, because as we can see, Nenne, with grace and determination, she went through the 20th century, arguably one of the most complicated but also violent century in history, and she donated this unbelievable testimony, this report from history, and it's a pleasure to have the chance to witness this, and of course my personal gratitude goes also to Dan, May, Diego, the staff of One Art Space.
Absolutely.
Because they envisioned this, they embraced this, and gave the opportunity to Deborah and Vincenzo to really set this milestone that for them it's not easy to talk about. What was your mother, your grandmother, such an intense experience. It's definitely not easy. So I want to thank you for sharing with us your personal experiences and thoughts. And today we are particularly lucky because we also have the chance to hear from two very special persons who somehow happen to be in touch with Nenne's journey. One is, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Showa Saleh, yeah, and David Koch. And I'm going to let them to explain to you exactly what was her point of contact with Nenne's journey, and you will find it very, very interesting. So please, Showa, if you can help us giving a little insight of your personal experience with Nenne. Come on, Thank
you. from Eritrea, came to the United States in 1980, and lived here since 1980. And a month ago, doing my own business, my niece sent me this link and said, check this. And it was a picture of Deborah in Eritrea, in Damariam Church. And I said, whoa. And then when I read the whole thing, it talks about Agassian school. So I said, oh my God, this is crazy. And
why is that crazy? Because you are?
Well, it was crazy because I called Deborah and I said, you know, Agassian was founded by my grandfather, Okubandurias, and he was the founder of Agassian school, and he was the high priest of Ndamariam Church. And so we start talking, and I start sharing my experience. And my grandfather was born in 1890, and he was against communism. He fought the Egyptians and the Turkish, and also Mussolini. And because of that, he was in prison for 2 years and tortured, and but he never stopped believing, educating his people, and also standing for nobody belongs in Africa except the Africans. So after the Italians left, he had so many wonderful Italian friends, and also invited the king, Haile Selassie from Ethiopia. He was the founder of the movement to bring Ethiopia as a federation. So when Haile Selassie came, he said, all I wanted to do is educate my people, and if he can help me reach that goal, I will devote my life to educate all the youth. And Haile Selassie, the king, said, I will. And the result of that, they opened Agassian school. So my father was the dean, and my grandfather was, he didn't start there, but he opened a couple of private schools, and he was teaching in the communities. And when the Italians came to support my grandfather to help him, as individuals, what Papa was saying here, he said, I will continue to live in the neighborhoods, in the communities, because if I leave the community will die. So he was teaching small schools in the corners. And at the result, this time, all his students are Harvard, Princeton. He has so many people that he taught. And here in the United States, they could share their history. So I was 2 years old when Agassian opened. So I don't remember much, but I went to Agassian myself up to 8th grade. And so all his family is in California right now. And I came here to share my story and support Deborah, this wonderful, strong woman. I just couldn't believe. But what I love is, beside what happened in Eritrea with the Italians, this beautiful woman brought this beauty to really bring the love and also the positive of it. So me growing up in Asmara, all I remember about the Italians was just beauty, because they called Asmara Piccola Roma, because it was built just like Rome, and it's the most beautiful city. I wish, if you have a chance, visit. So growing up, that's all I remember, and hopefully we will not stop here, so we'll go and continue. And I would love to go to Asmara with you. I haven't been there for since 2000.
Say one.
And share the same thing. And this is my story.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, that's, you see, not everything about social media and internet is bad. As you can see, something good can come out of it, and it's really an incredible
small world.
story. It's a small world, but also it tells you that history is made also by individuals. You know, you can see that the contribution of an individual, despite war, prison, torture, and a very unfair domination, there was something that, again, together they will able to build something positive. And if a word is worth surely about education, we talk about the importance of supporting art, and this is instead a proof about how education is important. And
well, what I love about
never forget it.
the Agassiz School, that's in the back, the original sketch is in the back with the poster, is that I found it to be a beautiful example of historical, political, architectural, and artistic all brought together. And I found that really interesting, and I love that idea.
Yeah.
I want to
So,
share it.
Yeah, Vincenzo, what do you think about what went in your mind when you heard about it? Yeah.
I don't know if, but I think it may be interesting to know. Asmara is now a World Heritage from the UNESCO as one of the best example of deco architecture of the 20th century, of the 19th century. The young Italian architects, when they went there, they built these very interesting monuments. It is being restored, and actually there will be an exhibit in Milan at the end of September, two exhibits. One will be with photos of the restoration, especially of the building, including the building where my mother's works were done, and then there will be another exhibit of her art in central Milan. You know Milan, so yes, you have an idea. But I think the school will be part of that, and all the works, all those buildings that have been restored, and it is an interesting city.
Yes, for sure. Now you intrigued us. Okay, we have to add another item on our bucket list. And but surprises are not over, because today we also have the chance to hear from the voice of David Koch, who basically worked in Addis Ababa, and I will let him again to introduce himself and tell us what was his point of connection with.
David brought the flags from the UN.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Yes, I brought the flags tonight. I was a UN staff member for 12 years, and that is how I came to be involved in the story of Nenne. And it's serendipitous. It's a small world personified, so it's very exciting to be here tonight. But essentially, through the various choices I made in life, wound up with the consultant role of working on a restoration project of a building in Addis called Africa Hall. And Africa Hall is home to Nenne's gigantic cyclorama. So that's not the right word, but it's essentially a surround sound, surround video painting of African flora. And it's massively, massively large. I don't know how big it is, but it's really, really big. And so in this building, which was commissioned by Haile Selassie in 1958 to be the headquarters of the United Nations in Africa, and Ethiopia is the natural home of this structure because it was the only country never to be colonized, except briefly by the Italians, but they don't call it a colonization. So this building was done by an architect called Medzemeni, I always say it wrong, dyslexia. And he knew Nenne in Asmara. And so he was associated with Haile Selassie for various architectural projects. So the three of them collaborated in 1958 in Addis to build this structure, which is just a marvelous, marvelous marriage of the spirit of the times and post-colonial aspirations for the African people, because 1958, 1961, when it was completed, that was when many of the African countries were becoming independent. And this structure was meant to be where Africans could meet in an African context to talk about their future, and not go to New York, and not go to Geneva, but be on African soil to do this. And in fact, I believe it was 1974, the African Union was founded later on in that very building. So this building is a very, very central intellectual touchstone for a lot of African aspiration. And the UN is now spending $57 million to restore it, architecturally, and to build a public information program. And that's really my involvement in it, is the public information component. How do we open this building back up to the public, to school children, to visiting artists, to cultural institutions in Addis, to African museums, to African artists and storytellers and filmmakers? How do we host temporary exhibitions? How do we host permanent exhibitions that allow Africans to talk about their hope for the future? And this is a very important time to do that, with a new government in Africa, a new peace with in Ethiopia, a new peace treaty with Eritrea, of course. You know, a lot of despots have been overturned in many different countries in Africa. So now that this building is turning 60, and Africa is turning a new page, it's very exciting to be involved in this project. And Nenne's did mosaics of African fauna in the basement level, essentially. And that's the public venue where the public that are going on these tours will enter the building and see these mosaics of African animals that she's got on the floor there. And then they will go through the building to the various levels and see the diplomatic quarters and the various artworks that are around the building, including this gigantic painting of African flora, which is being restored. And it's not Ethiopian, it's African. So these things are important for school groups, which will really be our most numerous group of people, and we're doing children's tours specifically in Amharic and in English and probably in other languages as well, so that school children can see the animals and identify the animals and know this is their African heritage, and then travel upstairs and see these pieces of plant life and exotic baobabs and exotic doom palms, as those are over there, the only palm trees with branches, and be able to see those things and be excited by them, and then learn something about the UN and what the UN is doing in Africa for them, and come away with a piece of public information that's exciting and memorable, and something that they'll remember and think the UN's good, Africa's good, Ethiopia's good, and we're also hoping to attract you know, a higher level of tourists to Ethiopia as well, because so many places are over-touristed. And Ethiopia just has so much to offer that we're trying to make this the flagship touchstone thing that you would see when you come to Ethiopia to learn about Africa. And Nenne's paintings and mosaics will be the focal point of all that. And what I would love to know more about one day, in a behind-the-scenes sort of scenario, is what was intellectual life like in Asmara in the late 50s, when Nenne was there and the architect was there, and Haile Selassie came around. We know where there's salons and incense and mystic people and priests.
Haile Selassie was the emperor, right?
Yeah, right.
The emperor.
So, you know, all these people came together in Asmara, not in Addis, but in Asmara, to do these exciting things, and then transfer all these artistic things to Africa Hall itself. Hence the UN flag and the Ethiopian flag, and of course Eritrea has its own flag now for the past several years. So that is my connection to all this, and somebody found me on Facebook, I think. No, it was a profile of me in my university alumni magazine of this Africa Hall project, and somebody found that and wrote to the Africa Hall team, who knew...
No. My godfather's son went to the university, he found the article, he sent it to my dad sends it to me and says, find this person. And I found him.
I would say that never give up and determination surely passed with the genes. And thank you very much. Okay, so, well, we learned a lot today. today. It was an emotional journey as well. So we have the privilege of having Vincenzo and Deborah. I'm pretty sure if somebody has some questions, we can hang out now here at the small reception. Of course, I want to thank again Dan and One Art Space, Vincenzo and Deborah for giving me this honor. We hope that we intrigued you a little bit, and this is very important for Vincenzo and Deborah. Is a way to somehow give a picture of this amazing experience and journey that Nenne expressed in her works, and it's meant also to be a starting point. Is the point where their effort in order to get these works out there and spread the knowledge about the legacy of this extraordinary woman, it has just started. So we are all excited about that. We can't thank you enough for sharing your personal stories.
I have to thank you for taking the interest and the support. Dan and Ishat and May and Diego and just everybody here at One Art Space. You've just been amazing, and this has been such an amazing, special experience. And you've all spoiled me. You've spoiled me.
Now you deserve that. Okay, thank you everybody. Enjoy the rest of the exhibition and see you next time.